Hi everyone and welcome to my weekly update with me, Richard Perry, Market Analyst at Hantec Markets. Each week I take through the key events I believe will be driving your investments in the coming days. Now moving into this week, we've had a lot of political factors which have been driving markets. We've had these trade tariffs that Donald Trump is looking to impose, driving a safe haven market move through the strengthening of the yen, strengthening of gold. We've seen treasury yields coming back lower. We've also seen political factors such as Brexit impacting on sterling, and also now over the weekend we've had the Italian elections. That's been a bit of a drag on the euro on Monday morning. But moving into this week, we've got a lot of central banks reporting monetary policy. We've got the Bank of Japan and the ECB at the end of this week. They are obviously going to be taking the main focus, but we've also got the RBA and the Bank of Canada as well. The ECB is not expected to move quite yet in terms of its sort of moves towards tightening monetary policy. It's likely to be that it's still a little bit early for the ECB to start moving away from its ultra easy policy, but you could start to see a little bit of a tweak in the statement. But it'll be interesting to see how the markets respond to this coming on Thursday. But also we've got the Bank of Japan. Again, too early I think for the Bank of Japan to start moving, but interesting that we had comments from Governor Kuruda, who said last week that 2019, if the inflation target were to be met, then we could start to see the Bank of Japan easing off or starting to tighten its monetary policy. So it's some interesting moves we could see later on this year, but probably a little bit early for the BOJ and the ECB. Now we've also got non-farm payrolls this week. How are markets going to respond to average hourly earnings? We had a surprise jump in average hourly earnings, which caused a significant sell-off and big fear spike in the markets at the beginning of last month. How are we going to see average hourly earnings respond this month? Well, it's expected to come down slightly to 2.8% from 2.9% last month. But again, if we see an upside surprise, would that start to drive fear back into the markets once again? Now, these key levels are being held on the equity markets at the moment. Big top patterns potentially coming out, but at the moment on Monday morning they are holding. Will they be able to survive and a rise in average hourly earnings if that were to be seen on Friday? But the general move, I think, will come through the central banks throughout this week, but the big volatility factor is certainly non-farm payrolls on Friday. Now, where are Forex markets at the moment? What we've seen the euro dollar, which has started to rise again because we've seen a rally on the back of the protectionist moves from Donald Trump. Now that protectionist move has started to see the dollar weakening again. We've seen that on the euro dollar, which has now broken a 2-week downtrend. Can that continue to move higher? 123.60 is a key level of resistance I'm looking out for this week. If it can move above that, it could reopen the highs again, 25.55. But at the moment, 23.60 is sort of limiting the moves. ECB is clearly going to be key and a big volatility factor as the week moves through to Thursday. And on cable, we've seen Brexit, which is sort of a lot of speeches been made in recent days, not only by Michel Barnier but also Theresa May on Friday. Sterling seems fairly settled at the moment, but you could see that as we sort of move closer and closer towards that EU meeting of the Council of Ministers of the Council later on the 22nd of March, we could start to see some bit of nerves coming through that cable market and also sterling as well. Now, we've also got the BOJ this week. How's that going to impact on the dollar yen? Dollar yen being significantly pulled lower by a safe haven move, strengthening on the yen. But again, is that going to continue in the wake of the BOJ on Friday? What about equity markets? Well, big sell-off resumed last week on the back of Donald Trump's protectionist moves. Again, it's sort of started to find a bit of support on Wall Street, and that sort of helped the European markets on Monday morning. But these are key levels that these markets are bouncing from. Is this going to be the time at which we see a big topping out of equity markets? I think payrolls could be a big factor to play on this, but at the moment the DAX is holding up above 11,869, and also the FTSE 100 is holding up above 7,073. But closing levels below those would be big breakdowns. Now, how Wall Street fares this week is going to be important to those markets. Now, in terms of commodities, we've seen the gold price rallying on the back of the weakness of the dollar, also the safe haven move of the market since the protectionist announcement from Donald Trump, and that has helped to drive gold back higher from the 1300 to 1310 key long-term support pivot band. Now, that is a key level, but also the market needs to break out above 1341 to really suggest that the bulls are gaining control, because at the moment still teetering on the brink, still on the in a bit of a downtrend phase, and it still needs to continue to recover. Now, the oil price is interesting because we've seen the oil price benefiting from a weaker dollar in recent days, but signs are that the US shale production is continuing to drive higher. It's above 800 rigs on the Baker Hughes rig count now. That's the highest since April 2015. We've seen US production levels coming ever higher and above 10 million barrels. So this is all sort of playing into the nerves of the market now, and we're seeing a little bit of uncertainty as to how the markets are going to go on the oil price, but needs to hold up basically above 61 bucks on WTI is a key level, and that needs to hold, and it'll be interesting to see if that does this week. So throughout this week, in terms of the economic calendar, as I said, main focus comes through these central banks throughout this week. But you've also got the UK annual budget. That always has a part to play in driving sterling as well. So extra volatility on Wednesday for sterling. Little bit of Chinese inflation data that could have a part to play in driving sentiment as well. But main focus being, I think, payrolls at the end of the week. So with that in mind, I wish you good luck in your trading, and I'll speak to you again next time. Thank you.